sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
All right, so get ready because we're going to dive into a story today that kind of captures like that whole crazy world of internet rumors and how celebrities react to it and like the whole power of social media.
Yeah.
And we're talking about Ayo Edebiri.
Oh, yeah.
You know, rising star from The Bear.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, Elon Musk, who always seems to be in the middle of some online craziness.
He seems to be at the center of every online storm these days, it feels like.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a wild case study in just like how fast misinformation can spread like a wildfire online and the very real consequences that can follow from that.
Exactly. So rewind back to February 2024.
Okay.
A totally made-up news story pops up online claiming that Ayo Edebiri is going to be the star in like a new Pirates of the Caribbean film.
Right.
And, of course, Disney never confirmed it.
Yeah.
No reliable source backed it up. But that didn't stop it from like spreading like wildfire.
Right. And that's the thing about the internet.
Yeah.
Once it's out there, it's out there.
Exactly. And then Elon Musk enters the picture.
This is where it gets juicy.
This is where it gets good.
Musk with his millions of followers, right?
Oh, yeah.
Tweets, Disney sucks. Links to this fake casting news.
Oh, wow.
Now, we don't know like what his intention was with that tweet.
Right.
But the impact was huge, undeniable.
Yeah.
Gave this rumor a huge boost, sending it to a whole new audience, people who might not have seen it otherwise.
It's like, yeah, pouring gasoline on a tiny flame.
Exactly.
Suddenly this like fake news is everywhere. And this is where we jump ahead a full year later.
Oh, wow.
To March 2025.
Okay.
Ayo Edebiri posts this Instagram story addressing this whole mess, and she does not hold back.
Yeah, this is where we see like the real world fallout
of
something that might have seemed like just a fleeting online moment.
Right.
You know?
She reveals that after Musk's tweet,
Yeah.
she was hit with all this stuff like insane death threats and racial slurs.
Oh my gosh.
Directly calls out Musk, labels him a double C Heiling fascist and an idiot.
Wow, strong words.
I know, right?
This is significant, though, because
Yeah.
it goes beyond, like, your typical celebrity clapback.
Right.
Like, she's highlighting the very real harm that was caused by spreading this fake news,
Yeah.
amplified by someone like Musk with his massive reach. This
Okay.
wasn't just online chatter. This had real-world consequences for her.
And she emphasizes, like, the absurdity of it all, too. She adds this little comment. For a fake reboot of a movie I had never even heard of.
Right.
Talk about being caught in the crossfire.
Yeah.
But, like, her reaction brings up all these questions,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
about the responsibility of people like Musk, even if what they did wasn't, like, intentionally bad.
Right.
Do they have, like, a duty to verify information before they put it out there to millions of people?
It's a question that's more important now than ever.
Yeah.
Given how much influence individuals have, you know, in shaping narratives.
Absolutely. And Edebiri's experience makes us look beyond that initial tweet. You know, what are the mechanics of like how misinformation spreads online? How do rumors like this gain traction so fast?
Well, I mean, think about like the algorithms behind these social media platforms. They're designed to like promote engagement, right?
Right.
Which often means promoting content that triggers strong emotions like outrage, excitement, fear. Fake news very often taps into these emotions, making it way more likely to go viral, whether or not it's true.
So it's not just about like individual responsibility.
Yeah.
But it's also about the way that these platforms are designed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's also important to remember that there are often like unseen forces at play.
Oh, like what?
We're not just talking about random people sharing rumors sometimes. There are coordinated efforts to spread disinformation.
What?
Using bot networks or fake accounts to amplify specific narratives.
That's kind of terrifying, honestly.
Yeah.
It feels like we're up against like a system designed to spread misinformation, even if it's not intentional.
It can feel that way at times.
So where do we even begin to like untangle this whole mess?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll get into more in the next part of this deep dive.
Okay.
But before we get there, let's unpack like the impact of Musk's actions.
Right.
And what they reveal about the power dynamics at play in like the digital age.
Okay, so let's unpack this power dynamic.
Yeah.
What makes someone like Musk so influential?
Right.
And why do people often believe what he says, even when it's about something like a random casting rumor?
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Part of it is what's called the halo effect.
Okay.
People who are successful in one area, like technology or business, are often seen as authorities in other fields, even if they have no expertise there.
Oh, so it's like, he's a genius who built rockets. He must know about movies, too.
Exactly. And social media amplifies this effect.
Right.
When someone with a huge following like Musk tweets something, it's seen as like a stamp of approval, lending legitimacy to whatever he's sharing, even if it's totally false.
That's a scary thought.
It is.
That means that misinformation can spread not just because people are gullible, but because they're trusting figures they perceive as authorities.
Exactly. And this brings us back to Ayo Edebiri. She became collateral damage in this dynamic. She was targeted not just because of the fake news, but because Musk's tweet gave it this level of validation that it just wouldn't have had otherwise. So this raises a really important question.
Yeah, what's that?
How can we navigate a world where someone's perceived authority amplified by social media can have such a real and harmful impact on others?
That's a huge question.
It is.
And it's one that we're going to dive into a little bit deeper in the next part of this deep dive.
We'll have to wait for next time.
But for now, that's going to wrap up part 1.
All right, sounds good. So picking up like where we left off, let's look a little closer at how Ayo Edebiri chose to respond to all this. You know, instead of just staying silent, she went straight at Elon Musk, and her choice of words were pretty strong, to say the least.
Yeah, she did not hold back at all.
Nope.
Calling him a fascist and an idiot.
Yeah.
Those are some serious accusations, especially going after someone with Musk's kind of reach.
Right.
It felt like she was taking a huge risk going head-to-head with him like that.
Yeah, and that's what's so interesting about her response. It challenges this idea that these super powerful figures are untouchable, you know?
Yeah.
She used her own platform, even though it's way smaller than Musk's, to hold him accountable.
It felt like a real David and Goliath kind of situation.
It did.
But it also made me think about how the online world always seems to like spiral into this outrage cycle you mentioned before.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean? And like, how did it play out in this whole scenario?
Okay, so the outrage cycle is basically this pattern where something super provocative happens online, and then it triggers this huge wave of anger and indignation. And this usually leads to like pile-ons where people rush to condemn whoever they think is the bad guy without even bothering to check if the information's accurate or considering the whole context.
Right.
And of course, social media algorithms, as we were talking about, they're built to amplify this kind of engagement.
So it's like this never-ending cycle of anger and reaction that's fueled by the very platforms we use.
Exactly. And in this case, Musk's tweet was that initial spark.
Yeah.
His comment, "Disney sucks," along with that fake news link, it just tapped into these existing feelings about Disney and fueled that outrage, which then created this perfect environment for Edebiri to become the target for anyone already looking for someone to blame.
It's like they were just itching for a fight and she got caught in the crossfire.
Pretty much.
So how do we like break free from this outrage cycle? Is it even possible?
That's the million-dollar question. I think a big part of it comes down to developing critical thinking skills.
Okay.
We need to train ourselves to stop before reacting, question the information we see, and consider different points of view.
So it's not just about fact-checking, but like actually stepping back and looking at our own emotional responses.
Exactly. And it's also about being aware of our own biases. We all have them, and they can affect how we interpret information and how we react to things.
That makes sense. This whole situation also shows like the unique problems celebrities face in this digital age. You know, they have this huge platform and tons of followers, but it seems like they're also super vulnerable to online hate and harassment.
Totally. Social media has blurred the lines between what's public and what's private.
Yeah.
Celebrities are constantly being watched and judged, and everything they do is analyzed and debated online.
It's intense.
It creates this environment where even the tiniest mistake can lead to this flood of negativity.
And in Edebiri's case, it wasn't even a mistake she made.
Right.
It was a totally made-up situation that just got out of control.
Yeah, it's a harsh reminder that online hate doesn't always come from actual bad behavior.
Right.
It can be fueled by misinformation, by groupthink, and the dynamics of this outrage cycle.
So what's the takeaway here? How do we as just regular people navigate this complicated online world where the truth can be so easily twisted and blown out of proportion?
Well, I think we need to start by recognizing that we all play a part in shaping a healthier online environment.
Okay.
We need to be more mindful of what we do, how we take in information, and how we interact with other people.
That makes sense. But What does that look like in everyday life?
Sure.
It can feel overwhelming sometimes, like you're constantly swimming upstream.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely a challenge, but there are practical things we can do.
Yeah.
One of the biggest ones is to be more intentional about where we get our information.
Okay.
It's easy to get caught in that trap of just scrolling through social media, but that usually only exposes us to a very limited set of viewpoints.
Right. Like those algorithms are designed to give us more of what we already agree with,
Yeah.
which creates those echo chambers where misinformation can spread like crazy.
Exactly. So we need to break out of those.
How do we do that?
We need to actively seek out diverse sources. Don't just stick to the same websites or follow the same accounts. Make an effort to expose yourself to different viewpoints, even ones you might disagree with at first.
So it's not about believing everything you read, but
Yeah.
like opening yourself up to more information and learning how to judge it critically?
Exactly. And when you see something online, don't just accept it as fact. Do a little digging,
Yeah.
Check the source. Look to see if other reliable news outlets are reporting the same story, and look for evidence that backs up what they're saying.
Be your own fact checker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what about those times when you see something that's clearly false or harmful being shared?
Yeah,
It can feel risky to speak up, especially if it's someone you know.
totally. I get that.
It can be uncomfortable, for sure, but sometimes the best thing we can do is just say something. You don't have to be confrontational about it.
Right.
You can just politely point out that the information is wrong or misleading.
It's about finding that balance between being informed and not getting sucked into these endless online arguments.
It is, and it's not always easy.
But is just pointing out the misinformation enough?
It's a great first step, but we can do more. We can support organizations that are focused on fact-checking and media literacy.
Oh, okay.
There are some really great resources out there that give people the tools and training to help them spot and debunk fake information.
And we can support journalists and news organizations that are committed to ethical reporting and accuracy.
Absolutely. In this age of information overload, it's more important than ever to have reliable sources we can trust.
This whole conversation has made me think about Ayo Edebiri's story in a new way. She used her platform, despite the risks, to call out misinformation and hold a powerful person accountable.
Right. And her actions show us something super important.
What's that?
We're not just passive consumers of information. We have the power to change the online world by speaking up against injustice, supporting credible sources, and practicing critical thinking. We can help create a more informed and responsible digital world.
It's like that saying, be the change you want to see.
Yeah.
Instead of just complaining about the problems online, we can actually do something about them.
Yes, and even though it might feel like a small act, each individual effort can have a ripple effect influencing other people and creating a collective shift toward a more trustworthy and fair online experience.
So how do we actually do that?
That's a great question, and it leads us to some key strategies for taking back control online. We'll dive into those in the final part of this deep dive.
All right, so we've talked about this whole outrage cycle and like the responsibility of these huge influencers and how important critical thinking is, but like, let's get real. What can we actually do to fight back against this misinformation and create a healthier online world? It feels like such a big problem.
It is a huge problem, but that doesn't mean we're totally powerless. It's kind of like building a muscle.
Well,
The more we work on these skills, the stronger we get as individuals. And when enough people do that, it can actually make a real difference.
okay, I like that analogy. So like, what's the first step in our digital detox routine?
I think one of the most effective things is to be more intentional about where we get our information from. It's so easy to just passively scroll through social media, but that often means we're only seeing a very narrow range of viewpoints.
Right. It's like those algorithms are designed to feed us more of what we already agree with. So we end up in these echo chambers where misinformation can just spread like crazy. So how do we break out of that?
We got to actively look for diverse sources instead of just reading the same websites or following the same accounts over and over. Make an effort to see different opinions, even ones you might not agree with right away.
So it's not about blindly believing everything you read, but more about opening yourself up to different information and learning how to judge it critically.
Exactly. And when you see something online, don't just assume it's true. Do a little research.
Yeah.
Check where it came from, see if other reliable news sources are reporting the same thing, and look for actual evidence that supports what's being said.
So be your own fact checker.
Exactly, but what about those times when you see something being shared that's obviously false or even harmful?
Right.
It can feel risky to say something, especially if it's someone you know personally.
Totally.
It can definitely be uncomfortable, but sometimes the best thing we can do is just speed up. You don't have to start an argument or anything.
Right.
Just politely point out that the information is inaccurate or misleading.
Yeah, it's about finding that balance between staying informed and not getting dragged into these endless internet fights.
It is, and it's not always easy.
But is it enough to just point out the misinformation?
It's a good start, but we can go further. We can support organizations that are dedicated to fact-checking and media literacy.
Okay.
There are some really great resources out there that give people the tools and the knowledge to help them identify and debunk false information.
And we can support journalists and news organizations that are committed to doing things the right way and being accurate.
Absolutely. With so much information out there these days, it's more important than ever to have reliable sources we can trust.
Thinking about this whole conversation, it makes me see Ayo Edebiri's story in a new light. She used her platform, even though it was risky, to call out this misinformation and hold a powerful person accountable.
Yeah, and what she did shows something really important.
What's that?
We're not just passive consumers of information. We have the power to shape the online world, by speaking up against injustice, supporting credible sources, and just practicing critical thinking. We can help create a digital world that's more informed and responsible.
It's like that saying, be the change you want to see.
Exactly.
Instead of just complaining about all the problems online, we can actually do something about it.
Exactly. And even though it might seem like a small thing, what each person does can create a ripple effect. It can influence others and lead to a collective shift towards a more trustworthy and fair online experience.
This whole deep dive has been really eye-opening, honestly. It's easy to get overwhelmed by all the negativity and misinformation out there. But this conversation has given me hope, we can take back control and make a better digital world.
I'm so happy to hear that. And remember, this is just the start, Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep engaging with the world around you together. We can make a difference.
That's right. The conversation doesn't end here. Until next time. Stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.